Imagine that there are 3 popes at the exact same time, instead of just one. All 3 are legitimate because they're backed by different kings and emperors. And all of them think that they are the true pope. At the time of recording, the cardinals of the Catholic Church are picking the next pope. Just one guy, and it's always a guy. So it's all rather simple. But 3 popes claiming the seat, well, that's a tough nut to crack. And here's the thing, this is a true story. So let me take you back to 1409, when 3 popes were named at the exact same time. And the consequences for the future of the Catholic Church were so big that it has never recovered from them. For 3 years now, the Catholic Church has held a council to resolve the problem of 3 different popes claiming to be the one true pope. We have Gregory XII, John the 23rd, and Benedict the 13th. They are at the end of a long story of chaos in the Catholic Church. Different kings and emperors have supported them. The expense and taxation needed to support 3 popes was taking its toll. Pretty much all of Europe wanted this to be over. And 3 years into this council to decide on who the pope should be, they have a name. One pope has been chosen. One pope to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. So we know the resolution of this bizarre incident. But this was a sequence of events going back over 100 years, to a time that the pope didn't even live in Rome. And that's the start of our story. Here is St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Well, the Vatican City now. The palace where the Pope lives. That's been the case almost since Roman times, except for a strange 60-year period where it was based in France. And to be specific, Avignon in the south of France. But this wasn't just some casual event. It signaled the end of the Catholic Church as people knew it. Catholic history is full of conflicts between kings and popes. The kings, whether English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, etc., always want some tax, some new law that the popes say isn't their right. Sometimes things can even turn violent. But the year 1303 was a true turning point. This is King Philip IV of France, one in the long list who thinks he can do what he wants. And here we have Boniface VIII, a pope determined to make sure the pope is seen as being above kings. He, Boniface, proclaimed the papal prerogative in the strongest terms, claiming the pope had authority over every human being in matters of salvation. This was a claim kings like Philip could not accept. A clash was inevitable, and when Philip started taxing clergy, things came to a boil. When Boniface complained, Philip called him corrupt and a heretic. So Boniface went for the nuclear option. He excommunicated Philip. This meant he wasn't part of the Catholic Church anymore. And that was a big deal back then. There's a charge your people would disobey you if you weren't under the protection of the Church. Boniface ultimately issued a papal bull to put into law that popes are above kings and emperors. But Philip wasn't alone in all of this. He had his very own Stephen Miller, Guillaume de Nogaret. He was looking to push the boundaries a bit, and by this stage Philip had one hand left to play. So he sends Guillaume to pay Boniface a little visit in Italy. He's in a small town called Anagni when the two meet. But it's not just the two of them. Philip didn't send him alone. He has an army with him of around 2,000 people. Guillaume storms the palace and demands Boniface resigns. But as we've started to gather, Boniface is a bit too stubborn for that. Enter Sciarra Colonna, a noble with a grudge and a fist, who is friendly with Guillaume. He delivers what becomes known as the slap of Anagni, straight to Boniface's, face. They keep Boniface hostage for 2 days. 3 days have gone by, and still he hasn't resigned. But Boniface isn't alone after all. Some locals come to his rescue, but the Anagni incident, as it becomes known as, has broken him, and he dies just a month later back in Rome. Never in history had a pope been so publicly humiliated by a secular power. Step forward Clement V, the chosen successor of Boniface. He just happens to be French, but he has a problem. He says that Rome is just too dangerous at the moment. He needs to leave, specifically to France, near Avignon. And so from 1309 onwards, the popes don't live in Rome. We call these 7 popes the Avignon popes, and they changed the very nature of the job. The Avignon popes were administrators, not apostles. In other words, they were more like kings than priests, and the damage done to the reputation of the church is bad. Everyone assumes that the pope is just a puppet of the French king now. But this little era ended when one of them finally decided it was time to go back to the home of the papacy, Rome. This is Pope Gregory XI, the last Avignon pope. Well, kind of, but we'll save that surprise for later. Under pressure from St. Catherine of Siena, he moved the papacy back to Rome in 1377. But he doesn't survive much longer himself, so it's time for a new pope. And the Roman citizens are not too happy that the pope has been French for so long. So the citizens of Rome form a little, innocent mob and head to the Vatican. What could go wrong? They strongly suggest to the cardinals that they should pick an Italian. The cardinals began to fear for their lives. We want a Roman pope. We want a Roman pope. Sure enough, the next pope, Urban VI, is Italian. Everything is great, a nice and simple process. But there's a problem. Some of those cardinals are complaining that they were forced into picking Urban VI. He was meant to be the fix, an Italian pope, elected in Rome, meant to calm the mob and return things to normal. They hoped they'd be able to control him. But Urban had other plans, so the signs were that Urban wasn't the safe choice they thought he was. Almost immediately, the cardinals realized they'd made a mistake. Urban starts lashing out, accusing cardinals of betrayal, threatening executions, and ruling with paranoia. One chronicler said he ruled more like a tyrant than a pope. Faced with the chaos they had helped to create, many cardinals flee the city. They regroup here. Yep, we're back in Anagni. And they make 2 huge decisions. First, they pick Clement VII as the new pope. Second, they send him back to Avignon. So we now have 2 popes, both elected by similar cardinals. 2 popes, 2 colleges of cardinals, 2 papal chanceries. Double the expenditure. But maybe it's temporary, something that can be worked out. Urban VI dies. Great, there's just 1 pope. Maybe all of this will just fade away. Nope. The Roman cardinals double down. They elect Boniface IX as Urban's successor. And behind these popes stood kings, emperors, and whole nations ready to use religion as a pawn. France, Aragon, and Castile back Avignon. England and the Holy Roman Empire back Rome. What started as a botched election is now a full-blown geopolitical nightmare. And the cracks in the church are getting wider. Back in France, Charles V was more than happy to have a pope back in Avignon. Eventually, the kingdoms of Aragon and Castile, part of what is now Spain, joined the Avignon side. In the other corner, the Roman side had Emperor Wenceslaus of the Holy Roman Empire and England on their side. But which pope to back was not a simple choice. It could make or break a ruler. Queen Joanna I of Naples has backed the Avignon Pope, Clement VII. Given Rome is closer to Naples than Avignon, she's in danger. Urban VI helps to overthrow her and puts people who back him in charge. But when both Charles and Wenceslaus are dead, things get a lot more complicated. Charles's son, Charles VI of France, wasn't so keen on the 2 popes thing and having to pay for his own private pope. So when the Avignon Pope, Clement VII, dies, there is tension about what will happen next. Charles VI wants this nonsense to end, and he tells the cardinals to avoid picking anyone, just accept the Roman Pope. But they don't listen, and they replace him with Benedict XIII. The Roman line goes through several more popes, none of whom can break the deadlock. By the early 1400s, the schism had dragged on for over 3 decades. 2 rival popes, 2 centres of power, 2 sets of taxes, appointments and demands, and a church that looks less like a beacon of faith and more like a religious civil war. People were tired, kings were broke, faith was cracking. Something had to give. And that's when a new generation of leaders stepped in people who wanted this mess cleaned up once and for all. So Europe tries something new. A council not led by popes, but by cardinals. The Council of Pisa. Everyone is going to sit down and decide who the Pope should be and back just one candidate. So on the Roman side, we have Innocent VII, Urban's successor in Rome. And on the Avignon side sits Benedict XIII. Who will win? The cardinals come to a compromise. They pick a new Pope, Alexander V, getting rid of the two that already have their own baggage. But here's the twist. Alexander V was a compromise for the cardinals, but neither Pope accepted him. Instead of solving the problem, the council just added a third voice to the chaos. And just like that, there are 3 popes. One in Rome, one in Avignon, and one in Pisa. How do you solve the 3-pope problem? This wasn't just chaos. Every failed solution chipped away at the church's moral authority. 5 years go by. Tension mounts. And by 1414, 3 people in particular are determined to end this nonsense. King Ladislas of Naples, whose father had taken the throne from Joanna. Doge Michel Steno, Venice's powerful leader, alongside the future Holy Roman Emperor, Sigismund of Luxembourg. A new council is called the Council of Constance, and it's a long one. 3 years go by, trying to negotiate a solution. John the 23rd, the Pisa Pope, is deposed. We're back to 2 popes. Gregory XII, the Roman Pope, reads the room and resigns. That leaves Benedict XIII, the Avignon Pope, as the last man standing. Sadly, he has no intention of resigning. If they don't come to an agreement, they're back to the 2-pope problem all over again. But this time, things are different. As we've seen, King Charles VI of France wants this to be over. So Benedict doesn't have many allies left. Not any important ones anyway. So everyone just ignores him. He's irrelevant from now on. And to tie this up in a little bow, they choose Martin V as the new, shiny Pope. With Martin V, the papal tiara was once more a single crown. The schism was over. Unity was restored. But the illusion of a powerful Pope? That was gone. It seemed like these councils saved the church. It raised a dangerous idea. Maybe the Pope wasn't the highest authority after all. The cracks would widen. In just over a century, there'd become a full-blown Reformation that would leave the Catholic Church weaker than ever. Something it has never recovered from. And if you're still watching, maybe you'll be interested in this. I'm putting together a little newsletter, completely free, sent weekly, where I'll put my thoughts on history, little bits of history that may not make it into videos, but are like really fascinating micro histories, I suppose. And maybe additional details on videos that are upcoming. Reach out to some of you and see what sort of videos you want to hear about. So yeah, if you want to join, then just click the link in the description, completely free. You can leave at any time, and maybe I'll see you there. See you later.